Welcome back to the Gary Abbott channel. Glad to have you with me. I wanted to do an update of my personal budget retirement spreadsheet, retirement planner that I put together and released this past week. I had some people email me. A number of you have requested the spreadsheet. It's a great update from one I did in 2022. But if you haven't seen that, I think there's a couple of things that happened in that video that have kind of put people who are looking at the villages, looking at the numbers. And it even made me sit back and realize the village is not necessarily an inexpensive place to live. And I've done a number of videos on trying to find a home under $250,000, like the one I'm going to put up in the corner. But those aren't really the ones that have taken off. And I've recently listened to some other YouTube channels that talk about what people are buying in the villages. And in the last couple of weeks, they've been buying homes between $200,000 and $400,000. So I really want to take a look at my spreadsheet, and I just want to give you some insight that maybe you got off this and maybe you got a new reality. But let's do this. Let me do a screen record. I think I should show the spreadsheet as I'm talking about it. So here we go. Here's the spreadsheet that I made available under that other video. I know I've given over 100 spreadsheets out in just the first few days of that thing being released. I was hoping that the audience was beyond the... I really think it's a great retirement tool for anybody looking to retire. But when it comes to the villages, that's what this is about, is taking that and re-looking in the mirror kind of thing about the villages. So let's do that. I think the big surprise is when you look at the total here of expenses, $64,000 a year. And if we go to the bottom of the expenses, I've got $5,400 in expenses if you include everything. And it's a much more realistic than a page that the Villages gives you that said you can live here for $1,200 a month or $1,500 a month. The reality is when you include all of the things of health insurance and everything else, you're looking at $60,000 a year for a modest property. And when I scroll up, no mortgage. Absolutely no mortgage. So I've kind of re-looked at this, and then I looked at the section on bonds. Property taxes and bond. And I've really kind of second looked at that. And I've also found some new things. And I'm going to go to property listings and where you can find the bond schedule. And I'm going to do that in this video, so it will be helpful to you if you're looking to go to the villages or you're considering what it costs to live in the villages. If you bought 5 years ago or earlier, you probably don't have these costs. But the new costs and the new reality of the villages and the rising prices that have happened over 5 years have affected the villages. Some of the other costs are reasonable. You can get telephone service, all that kind of stuff. You can get, your electricity and your other stuff is reasonable. But when you look at property taxes, bond, depends where you live and where you're coming from, whether you look at this as inexpensive. And I'm not so sure when you have to come up with the income section to reach the $6,000 a month. I came to grips with you either probably need, in addition to your Social Security, a pension, or you've done very well in your 401k or retirement funds that you can generate the amount of money that you need. And so that's really what it showed. It also showed me that some people are going to need to continue to work just to be able to afford. And here's where I'm gonna go to it to show you how I came to this, but I'm gonna give you my insight. If you buy a new home, the price looks low, but then when you look at the bonds being added, and many of the bonds in Lake Denham, Newell, Dabney, you're looking at $40,000 in a bond, and I'm going to show that in this video. But that's a pretty big number to carry for many, many years as a once-a-year payment. And with the interest rates, it looks like I compared it up to 3 years ago. You used to get a bond, but the interest rate was so low, it didn't really double over the period of time. So 40,000 now, clearly with 5% interest rate, it turns into $80,000 over the period of the bond payments. That's a lot of money. I'm re-looking at this. You kind of got some bigger debts, and some of these numbers in my planning budget for those that buy one of those designer homes has a $40,000 bond. You're much higher, and if you're able to do it without taking a mortgage, but if you need to take a mortgage, I think a lot of people are looking at this and suddenly going, hey, maybe the Villages isn't for me because of those extra costs. And the extra costs include the $2,300 a year for amenity fees. It's a cost. You got to put it in. So I guess a week after I've done this, I've come to grips with you need to be able to generate income in retirement of about 60 grand at a minimum. Now you could get into a villa, but even some of the villas, the bonds were higher. And I don't know if it's because in the villa sections, you're paying for all of those walls that have gone up between the houses and around your house. Many people like the villas because they have walls and separation. But I think because of the construction costs of those kind of infrastructure things, I did notice some villas with pretty high $30,000 bonds for a villa. That's not the old days of 19 or 15 or whatever those were. No, it's like 30,000. So, some of them are 25, but I did notice those costs plugged into this are going to raise that up to, instead of 60 to 70. So if you've got to have a mortgage, if you add another $1,000, it's a lot of money. So I'm trying to give you my insights to this, that if you're going to look at the Villages and you're trying to squeeze in and just barely, you could be in some trouble here with the cost of the bonds and really the construction of the new neighborhoods. Now you could get into the older communities, which will have less of a bond, which will keep these numbers down. Just keep in mind you might have some additional costs of roofs and improvements that you need to make, and a lot of times that's going to cost you a few $1,000s to get it up to speed. A little insight on this, I did have a couple of comments. Laura, thanks. Missing maybe a category for your churches or miscellaneous. And those you can easily change into any of the other categories that you find that you don't use. Under the personal budget, under expenses, under home, there is a category called Other where you could put those kind of things. So I just want to put that out there, some of the comments. But I do think this comprehensive budget, and I don't even think even at the $60,000 per year that you need an income, I think you need a little bit more because of food budgets and all that kind of stuff. Food has gone way up, and I don't know if I did enough in that category. So I'm just kind of doing that. Now I want to show you some new listings and correlate it to bonds. So let's open up I just like the app better. So I've already done, I'm going to pull up homes. I did this already. I went to Cottage Homes and found none, okay? none that are new. I found old ones, but not new ones, or ones that were in like St. Catherine. So you can still search by that. But let's just go, I just want a designer home. Let's go to available homes. This is immediately, I need to sort this. We just want to see new. Village, let's go. So I went to Village of Lake Denham, designer homes, home sites. We'll pick any and we'll apply. So these are new homes in Lake Denham that we've picked. And let's just take a look at this Whippoorwill 1,400 square foot, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Let's just take a look at this. Now, one of the things I found, besides looking at this home, which we'll just take a quick look at it, you can kind of see what that home looks like. There's lots of pictures, and it's in Lake Denham. We can actually take a look at where it is on the map. Let's shrink that down. It's pretty close to the outer edge of where 470 and the turnpike go by. If you were to pick this house, I would recommend you go there just to double check whether you can hear the roadway, whether that's satisfactory or not. I would definitely recommend that. But what I wanted to show you is, if you look over here in the corner, it has a VNH number 63V044. I want to quickly go to the website that shows the bonds. Okay, I'm under the villages, community development districts. I'm under the amortization schedules. I'm under Lake County, which it is District 14. So we're looking at 63V. The bond is $45,000. $45,000. And if you look at it, it's a 30-year payment of about $3,264. A lot higher than my estimate that was in my budget calculator of about $1,500 per year. It's $3,200. Let me just go back to this Villages District. Right under here, under Villages District, is a bond amortization schedule. You can see the districts: Marion, Counter, Sumter, what districts. You have to really figure out what district. And I think there's a clue there in that description under new. Used homes usually don't have that, but somebody, a realtor or the agent, has probably put it in the description of what the bond is. But you can see Lake County, Districts 11 and District 14. So that's where I went when I went to District 11 and 14, and I matched up that 63V. If we go back to the Villages app, you can see that 63V, which I believe is that critical lot number that's assigned to how many homes in that area ended up falling under the distribution of how the bonds are split up. A $356,000 home, designer home, but it does have a $45,000 bond. Now, you do have the option to pay that $45,000 at closing or any year along the way, but you need the $45,000 in order to do that, to pay it off early. Otherwise, it's treated a lot like a mortgage, but it's not a mortgage. It's not with a lending institute. It runs with the property. So some people leave it and say, I'm not going to make it 30 more years. I'm already 70. I'm not going to make it to 100. I'm not going to pay the full amount no matter what. The tricky part of that is, over the life of the loan, let's go back there and take another look. 63V. Between principal and interest, administration fees, you're paying $45, but your total out of pocket is $99. You're paying double. Just like I said in the earlier part of the video, you are paying double. So I wanted to bring this little thing that I finally saw that makes it much easier. You can try to go to through the tax documents of any property and get that 63V or what villa it is. If you notice in this, you can see the villas. You know, if you know what villa that property is in, you can look it up by the villas. But if it's a residential unit not in one of the villas, then you need to know one of these unit numbers. I hope you found that helpful. But I clearly started to look at the bonds more because people made comments under the video that you can't get bonds like 25,000 like I was referring to, or a little over 20,000. I want people to be deceived. And even under some of these villas, I'm just going to randomly pick one. Let's just pick the Newell Verandas. Under the Newell Verandas, you're looking at $35,000 for bonds. So just because it's a villa doesn't mean it's inexpensive. It doesn't mean that. And I want people to know I may have been short a little bit if you're going for one of these homes. The other thing that the calculator was made for is so people don't get over their head. I guess my hope is that you'll know your income and you'll need to figure out what those expenses, and maybe you can't afford one of these homes plus the bond and what that payment is. And you can see this one is $2,500, so about $1,000 more than my calculator took into play. And I do like it because when you kind of look at other homes, let's just take a look at another home. Let's look at this 440. It's in that same 63V. So in this neighborhood, all these homes are pretty much, but that house is a lot more expensive, but you're into that same $40,000, $45,000 bond. So I think that's a tricky way. Let's just see if I can find another one. Available designer homes, but I want to change the filters. It's all. So let's do this. I'm looking for a new one that's not in Lake Denham. Okay, I don't want to take $1 million home. Village of Newell. Village of Newell, different area. Clearly a house has an open house today. You can kind of see this, but it has a 41V. So let's go to the 41V. I don't see any of the villas being 41. Let's go to unit 41. And again, $43,000 bond. And you can see the interest rate of 5.47. So not a lot of difference between the last area in Lake Denham and this area. And again, you're going to pay $43 for the principal, $44 for the interest, plus another $6,000 for administrative. So you're paying double now that the rate is 5.47. Hope you enjoyed it. I share with you what I learned from doing the spreadsheet. Also, kind of what you can do if you're looking for a property. This should help you out a lot. Thanks for watching.